The alarm on my console screamed before I even understood what it meant. I was alone on the night shift at Outpost Halvan, a small human relay station on the edge of nowhere, when the signal came in. It was not our usual traffic. It was not trade data or a supply update. It was a distress call, and it was shaking so badly on the frequency that I almost missed the words hidden inside the static. "Please, anyone, we are dying out here." My hands froze over the controls. I had trained for 100 kinds of emergencies, but nothing prepared me for the sound of true terror in an alien voice. I locked onto the source. The signal belonged to a small alliance of alien worlds called the Farron Cluster, 3 peaceful species who had never built a real military in their entire history. They were scientists, traders, and builders, not fighters, and according to the panicked message flooding my screen, a hostile empire called the Kygon had surrounded their home system and given them 1 hour to surrender their resources or be destroyed. 1 hour. I checked the logs. They had already called for help. 3 other spacefaring powers had received the same message before it reached me. All 3 had refused. 1 did not even respond. The others said the risk was too high, the politics too complicated, the cost too great for beings that were not their own. The voice on my screen belonged to a woman named Sella Ventre, an alien diplomat with no army behind her, and nothing left to offer but a plea. "We know your kind is unpredictable," she said, her voice breaking. "We have heard that humans are dangerous. We do not ask for your friendship. We only ask that you not let us disappear in silence." I did not wait for permission. I hit the direct channel to Fleet Command, and I said words I never thought I would say in my life. "This is Outpost Halvan. Civilians are about to be wiped out. I am requesting emergency response, right now." There was a pause, a long one. I thought maybe I had made a mistake, that maybe this was not my call to make. Then a voice answered, calm and steady. It belonged to Captain Ethan Cross, commander of a rapid response group stationed 2 systems away. "Send coordinates," he said. "We are already moving." I blinked at the screen. He had not asked for a vote. He had not asked what the Alliance Council thought. He had not asked what was in it for us. He was already moving. Within minutes, my display filled with more channels lighting up, one after another, like a chain reaction. Pilots signing off leave time. Engineers waking up their ships early. A civilian doctor named Grace Miller, who ran a medical transport near the border, volunteered her ship before anyone even asked her to. I sent the coordinates to Sella, and I told her help was coming. She did not believe me at first. "You cannot arrive in time," she said. "No fleet moves that fast without weeks of preparation." "Ours does," I told her, though even I was not fully sure it was true. While she stayed on the line with me, I watched the numbers update on my screen, the response times shrinking faster than protocol should have allowed. It was not one grand fleet answering the call. It was 17 ships of different sizes, some military, some civilian, all breaking every normal rule of coordination to reach one dying system in time. I had never felt my heart pound like that before, watching numbers on a screen. Sella's voice trembled again. "Why would strangers do this for us? We have nothing to give you. No wealth, no weapons, no trade worth risking lives over." I thought about how to answer that. The truth was simple, but I was not sure she would understand it. "Because you called," I said. "That is enough for us." She went silent for a moment, and I realized she was crying. The Kygon fleet had already begun its final approach toward the Farron homeworld when the first human ships dropped out of transit space. I watched the sensor feed update in real time, my throat tight, my hands gripping the edge of my console. Captain Cross's voice came through the main channel, steady and clear despite everything happening around him. "This is Captain Ethan Cross of the Human Coalition. You are ordered to stand down and withdraw from this system immediately." There was a pause on the Kygon side, then laughter, cold and mocking. You bring 17 ships against our armada for beings that are not even your own kind, a Kaigon commander answered. This is not your war. It is now, Cross said. What followed was not a story of overwhelming firepower. The human ships were outnumbered nearly 3-1, but they did not retreat, and they did not hesitate. They placed themselves directly between the Kaigon fleet and the Farron homeworld, forming a wall of steel and courage that should not have been possible with so few ships. I watched from my station, unable to look away, as Grace Miller's medical transport, unarmed and vulnerable, moved forward anyway to begin pulling civilians from evacuation shuttles caught in the crossfire zone. She was not a soldier. She had no reason to be there, except that people needed saving. The Kaigon commander hesitated. I could hear it in his voice when he spoke again. Your numbers are meaningless here. Why do you stand against us for strangers? Captain Cross answered without a trace of doubt. Because somewhere, once, we were the ones who had no one to answer our call. We remember what that silence felt like. We decided a long time ago that no one else should ever have to feel it while we still had the strength to answer. For a long moment, nothing happened. The Kaigon ships held position, weapons still charged, engines still humming with threat. I held my breath along with everyone listening on that channel. Then, slowly, the Kaigon fleet began to withdraw. It was not because the humans had more firepower. It was because the Kaigon commander understood something in that moment that no calculation could measure. These strangers were not fighting for territory or profit. They were fighting simply because they had chosen to, and that kind of resolve was harder to break than any weapon. Kaigon ships turned and disappeared into transit space, leaving the Farron system untouched. On my screen, Sella Ventre was openly weeping, her hands pressed to her chest as she watched her people's shuttles return safely to the surface. I do not understand, she said quietly. You risked everything for us, and you gained nothing. I thought about that question for a long time before I answered. We gained everything, I said. We gained the truth about who we choose to be when someone else has nowhere left to turn. In the days that followed, the story spread across dozens of alien networks, retold again and again with growing disbelief. Species who had always avoided humanity out of fear began sending quiet messages, not asking for trade or technology, but simply asking one question. Why did you come for us? I answered every one of them the same way I had answered Sella. Because you called, and that was enough. Grace Miller later told me she had not thought twice before turning her medical ship toward danger. She said saving lives was not something she measured against risk. It was simply what she did. Captain Ethan Cross never spoke publicly about what happened that day. When asked why he moved his ships without waiting for full approval, he gave a short answer that eventually became known across a dozen star systems. They needed help. We were able to give it. There was nothing else to decide. Sella Ventre visited Outpost Halvin months later, in person, carrying a small token from her people, a crystal shaped like an open hand, a symbol of trust freely given. She told me that before that day, her people had believed humans were dangerous because they were unpredictable and difficult to control. Now, she said, they understood the truth. Humans were dangerous because once they cared about you, nothing in the galaxy could stop them from standing beside you. I still think about that night sometimes, the static on the line, the fear in Sella's voice, the numbers ticking down on my screen as I waited to see if help would come in time. It did. Not because it was easy, not because it made sense on paper, but because somewhere along the way, humanity decided that a cry for help was not something to be measured, negotiated, or ignored. It was something to be answered. And on that night, across the dark and silent space between the stars, it was answered without hesitation, without conditions, and without a single moment of doubt. That is who we are. That is what shocked them. Not our weapons, not our numbers, our hearts.